Hello and welcome to a Sunday edition of our live conversation. And I have a very, very special guest, which I'm really excited to have. Dr. Dar, you and I have known each other for many, many years. And I thought, why not have an expert come on who has had the experience of building multiple multi-million dollar clinics, building your empire in dentistry. You've been practicing for many, many years, and
Yeah,
you
we'll leave it at that.
yeah, I don't know the safest routes. And just kind of, based off of what we've been going through, right? We wanted
Yeah,
to be able to have somebody on to discuss all of the changes that this crisis has really brought upon our entire industry.
yeah.
So we wanted to have you on board and join the conversation. So thanks so much for being with us this afternoon.
Hey, Samantha, thanks for having me. This is a nice Sunday morning conversation, which incidentally to our listeners, we do quite often. So I've known Samantha. Samantha and I used to work together. Samantha was my COO when we started with the first practice, and we grew it into 6 practices across the nation. So Samantha was my right-hand person, and she helped me with the growth, the organic growth of the practices and the expansion and so on. So we've known each other for what, 8, 9 years now, and which is actually how Stream Dental started in the first place. So we started fine tuning our system. The dentistry or the orthodontics aspect of the job, while that we mastered, we go to school for a lot of years for that, but it was everything around it. It was the business, it was the HR, it was the staff, it was the team members. How do we handle this? How do we duplicate things? How do we make sure that these practices run in parallel, basically? And so we started putting down some forms, some questions, and we started putting it such that when you go to either one of these practices, they're all duplicated in other practices. And that's how Stream Dental was born in the first place. So we're both proud of it. As she doesn't work for me, she works with me now. We're partners in this. We've had fun. You want to hear something funny, guys? For the 8 or 9 years that we've known each other, and since we started the partnership 6 years ago, we have not had one argument yet, which scares the heck out of me, because we always back and forth. We always, one of us convinces the other of what works best. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share my experience, and this is certainly, these are tough times. They're tough times for all of us. Being listening to the news and listening to podcasts and webinars, there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I have to tell you, I just want to start off the top of this session by saying it ain't as bad as it looks, and we're going to draw some parallel from the past, and let's move forward on a positive note on this Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, thank you for that and tying that all together, because it's true. When we hear this pandemic, we
Yeah,
hear the doom and gloom constantly. Anytime you turn on your TV, you open up your social media,
yeah,
it's tons of information. So it can seem a little overwhelming,
yeah.
but when you compare from where we were 2 months ago to where we are now, it's a completely different chapter, right? So all of this accelerated change has been thrust upon our industry, and
Yeah.
we literally had to change overnight. So what were some of the things that you've noticed, and the changes in the how practices have been adapting to this?
Well, I want to start off by saying this. This is a medical issue or a health issue that affected us personally and professionally, all of us. So one of the things that what has been happening across North America is dental offices in general are closed now. So, but we have to deal with emergencies. So emergency centers have been set up in almost every major metropolitan city in North America, which is really nice. It shows how the community comes together. So for instance, here in Vancouver, there's one center downtown whereby all the other doctors can refer their patients to that one center. So instead of having 30, 40, 50, 60 dental offices open, well, now you have the one office that is open and handles all the emergencies. And the way they communicate, the way information is flowing back and forth. So that was really heartwarming to see. It's nice to know that people are helping each other. And speaking with the gentleman, with the dentist that's running the center here downtown in Vancouver, and I spoke with him, he's a close friend. And I asked him, how do you manage information? Well, he says the dentist that refers us the patient, he or she will give us sort of quick synopsis of their medical and dental history. And I go, how do you go with payment? He goes, believe it or not, over 70% of the time, we don't even get paid. And we're not sending invoices. So that tells you a lot about the human spirit and especially about our profession in general. So it really was heartwarming. So these doctors are pretty much working for free. Mind you, PPE now, they have face masks, they have the N95, they have even respirators, and they're double gloving. So they're taking quite a bit of risk, and at the end of the day, doing it for free to help their colleagues and their patients. So that was quite impressive. How does that change? So that's the first positive thing that I noticed. One of the other things is the speculation. Now everybody is waiting to see what the licensing bodies will do with aerosol, with air water syringes. Do we have to be in a closed up room? Are the rooms going to be closed completely with a door? Is the ventilation going to be a bit different? Suction, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of ventilation. And again, I'm going to go back to the beginning of this to say this is really a health issue until we get to know what the virus does, what it's capable of, and how to attenuate it. Then until then, we can't count on what needs to happen. We can only speculate at this point. But certainly PPE is going to be more or less mandatory. We're going to be a lot more careful. We're using handpiece, be it slow speed or high speed, but especially high speed, and maybe using high volume suction close to the oral cavity when we're working as dentists. Those are some of the changes that will come our way. How is that going to be handled? I'm not sure, but we're relying on our licensing bodies for direction, and Health Canada as well, and other health authorities in the U.S. to give us guidance on how we do that. We'll come out of it, but there are some changes that will need to be implemented. But the dentistry as a profession is not going to wither and die. It's not going anywhere. We just have to adapt a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I agree with you that the things that have come from this,
Yeah.
there's so much positivity out there. And I feel like that's really kind of grounded all of us. I know it did for me.
Yeah.
And to be able to just take that moment to connect and see what can I do to help other people. And you can see that throughout right now of the generosity and the support. And, there, even though we might not be able to see each other, and be with each other physically, there's so much that people have been doing and going out of their way to really, reach other people's hearts and connect with them on a different level.
It is, and Samantha, you're right about that. It is encouraging, and here in our neighborhood, excuse me, we hear about younger. Well, I don't want to say kids, young teenagers knocking on their neighbor's door, just asking, sort of knocking on the door and taking a few steps back and ask if everybody's okay, if they can help with anything. And we're hearing stories here in our little neighborhood. So these are all heartwarming. And again, it's an expression of how nice the human spirit is and how strong it is. So it's nice to hear. So something good always, everything has a silver lining as far as I'm concerned. And this is, and every experience is a learning experience at the end of the day. The world is changing a little bit. Again, let me touch up a little bit on I started dental school in the late 80s, and by then HIV was the big bad disease back then, and millions of people unfortunately died from that disease worldwide, not only in North America. But it was at the time where wearing gloves and masks were something new. So imagine the practice of dentistry without gloves and masks. So everybody was worried. And Samantha, we didn't know was the HIV virus transmitted through saliva? Is it only blood, other body fluids? So there was a lot of uncertainty. So what the specialty did, or at least what the university at the time did, says everybody wears gloves, everybody wears masks, and something good came out of it. The dentistry as a profession did not die. It wasn't negatively affected, but something good actually came out of it, because I can't imagine myself today practicing without gloves and a mask. So we have seen precedent in a sense that the specialty or the profession of dentistry will always face challenges, but will always come on top. You have to think you're dealing with intelligent people. The profession, there's a lot of years of schooling, and no one's going to give up on that. So we'll always find a solution, and something good will always come out of it. And this is no different. Social distancing, it's funny to quote my wife, she goes, social distancing wants me to hug people more now. It's just you want to be close to people. You want to have that personal interaction. But in a dental office, that might be a little bit different nowadays. But we certainly find a way around it. But we face other challenges in the past. So something good will come out of that, and I know we'll survive.
Agreed. And I think that's a great way for us to just kind of, get recentered, refocused, and see that it's not doom and gloom. It doesn't mean that
Yeah,
the world is ending, the industry is ending, I can no longer be a dentist anymore. It's just, we just have to make some changes and adapt to the situation and overcome it, and then eventually thrive
yeah,
from this.
yeah.
Right. So,
It is. I mean, as an orthodontist, I'm lucky in a sense that and my heart goes. I don't want to dismiss the casualties. The people that passed away, the people that sort of had to live with the death of a family member or of a friend. Those are never easy. Those are really tough, and it's something that, because the virus itself was unknown, because it's a brand new virus, we didn't know much about it. So my heart goes out to all these people, and I know I have friends and family members that were affected by that as well. So it's not the greatest feeling, but at the end of the day, we have to mourn, but then we have to move forward. So not to disregard that aspect, but something good will come out of it. And as an orthodontist, a bit of a challenge here is, and it's a double-edged sword. The good part about it is, in the specialty of orthodontics, we don't create a lot of aerosol. In other words, we don't use a drill as much as a general dentist or an endodontist may use. So we're sort of lucky. 20, maybe 25% of the instances will actually need to use a handpiece. But the rest of the time, whether you're changing wires, whether you're changing elastics, changing aligners, whatever the case may be, we can actually function without even reaching out for a handpiece. So that's the good part about it. The bad thing is, most orthodontists or offices are open, so the ops are completely open. There's no walls, floor to ceiling. There's no doors. They're not cubicle like. So an orthodontic practice is completely open, which is good because, to digress a little bit, because it's a nice Sunday morning talk. You know how many of my patients end up sitting next to each other and then recognizing each other, either from the past, or their kids know each other, or so on and so forth, or they actually make new friendship. It really is nice to see that, and that happens a little bit more often than you can imagine. So that's good, but now we have to deal with this. So we'll wait for the college to see if they may. The way I see it, the way I suspect in orthodontics at least, is the colleges will actually request that 1 or 2 rooms will be completely closed, and the rest whereby the chairs can remain open. And those are usually the chairs that are usually 6 feet apart is the bare minimum that you find in between orthodontic chairs. So that part will be safe, I think. But having a couple of closed rooms in every orthodontic office, whereby when you bond brackets, remove brackets, or bond attachment or remove attachments for aligners. So maybe 2 rooms will be closed for that, 2 or 3, whatever the case may be. So again, there will be some changes, and those changes we will be able to handle them as time comes. So change is not necessarily a bad thing. These rooms that are closed, we can have it. It's good to have the team be at ease, because we have to think not only of the patient but also of our staff. So when you go into these rooms and you have to remove brackets, or you have to remove attachment, or so on and so forth, well, the team members can be in full PPE maybe, and then this way they'll feel comfortable, and we'll have high suction, we'll have better ventilation in those rooms as well. So it is a win-win, no matter how you look at it at the end of the day. Some modifications to some orthodontic offices will be necessary, but most of us usually have a couple of rooms that are fully functional, that are enclosed completely. We'll just start using them a little bit more efficiently, I think.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in that regards. Is, we need to start looking at what are we going to be doing differently, so we can keep our patients and our team safe, because everybody's hyper aware right now. We're all very sensitive.
Correct.
We've been seeing how this is being spread. There's so much unknowns about this particular virus. So it's, what can I do with every means possible that I have to make everybody feel safe? And I think that's the key point of making sure that we're kind of starting to see those points in our business and our
Yeah.
practice of possible exposure.
Yes, and you know what it is, Samantha. And again, we were talking about some of the good things that came out of this. Is look at us. We're doing now virtual meetings. So virtual meeting have become ubiquitous at this point, right? So be it early on, we used to think that maybe the earlier generation, the younger generation, are used to sort of FaceTime and Zoom and what have you. Well, now we're all used to it, even old people like me, right? So we're all used to it. We're more comfortable using it. So maybe that aspect can help. Electronic communication, maybe, for instance, doing the medical dental questionnaire. A lot more dental offices are going to send those. Before the patient's first visit, maybe, and then they'll be able to fill them so that there's the least amount of sort of not human interaction, but actual interaction in terms of physically touching paper when they're in the office, so on and so forth. So again, that's something that is good for orthodontists, maybe monitoring at a distance, whether it be dental monitoring or whether, I use the Invisalign system exclusively. So whether Invisalign, I think, might be working on something similar as well. So virtually we can get some the diagnosis done virtually. You can give instructions virtually, so we can use that aspect as well, and that has developed quite nicely, so we can take advantage of that as well. And if you think about it, that actually ends up being time consuming, because most of my practices, I treat adults as well as children. So adults are busy, they have busy lives, and they're at work, and if it means sort of maybe less visits or making the visit within the dental or orthodontist office shorter, something good comes out of that, so they can get back to work a little bit sooner. So all in all, if you package it all together, virtual monitoring and virtual communication, something good will come out of that. What we have to do, not only do our patients have to adjust, but we have to adjust. We have to communicate with our teams. We have to come up with new rules and regulations, maybe new guidelines, if you want, and we'll have to put all these together, and this is where I toot my own horn, basically. Stream Dental, that's where companies like our company will come into play and demystify that aspect of it, because it is overwhelming to the doctors, it is overwhelming to the office manager, Samantha, it's overwhelming to everybody. Say, now we have to make the changes. What are the rules? Who's going to write the rules? How do we do this? Well, we're here. Like I said, Stream Dental is one of those companies that is interactive, because we don't pick you don't pick things off the shelf and just send it to them. We actually interview the dental office. We interview the person in charge of the policies in the office, and then we custom make a booklet whereby we'll listen. We hear an orthodontist office might be different than a periodontist office than an oral surgeon, so we'll custom make that, and we'll work with the office to make the rules so that they're not overwhelmed, and then these guidelines will be available to the whole team member. So again, a little bit of zigzagging here and there, but you know what, if my mom used to say, if you carry the world on your shoulder, it's very heavy. But if you get 10 of your friends to help you with it, it becomes a little bit lighter. And that's what we're trying to do, is spread the work, spread the love, have other experts come in and help you with it. And it's not something that's going to break the bank anyway. So it's something that is necessary. You do it once, you stay on top of it, you follow through. And that's where I think companies like ours will become quite helpful, and more than in more than one level. At the end of the day, we want our beloved dentistry, not only orthodontics as a specialty, but dentistry as a discipline, to survive and prosper with time.
Well, and I think the same thing when it came to when all of this, like overnight, basically the government forced us to make a decision, right? That we had to close our doors. It was no ifs, ands, or buts. So we had to make that decision. We had to make those tough choices. But at the same time, I think that also shone like this big spotlight on some holes in the business. Maybe we didn't have HR. Maybe we didn't have an occupational health and safety or an OSHA fuel, because all these things were, as an orthodontist, as a practice owner and a practitioner, like you've got a lot on your plate to juggle. So sometimes those things really weren't on your agenda or your to-do list. But
Right.
now with something like this happening, that's when you really see the holes and the gaps that could leave our business vulnerable. So this is another area where, like you said, we've got to adapt, right?
Yeah.
These are the things that we've seen. And I know our team has been extremely busy on just keeping up with all of the changes that are happening hour by hour, day by day.
Yeah.
The other day we were looking at adjusting one of the harassment and discrimination policies in accordance with all the things that have been released now with COVID-19.
Yeah.
And there was something that was put together by the government, which was called Reopening America.
Yeah.
And there was a specific area for employers that they said, when you are preparing to reopen, you have to adapt and modify your policies and your protocols. So
Yeah.
this is that the government is mandating for us to make those changes in our business.
Yeah.
So now that we've, essentially been given the gift of time,
Yeah.
we are not seeing patients right now, but we are able to kind of work on the business since we're not in the business. So I agree with you. I think this is, a little plug, of course, for Stream and what we've been able to do and help practices. But I want to circle back and I want to ask you, if you had a crystal ball and if you could predict, 2 years from now, what do you think that the future would look like when it comes to dentistry?
Samantha, that's a good question, and it's a tricky question at the same time because you're trying to look into the future, and none of us have a crystal ball. But using the past as a guidance, sort of, you look into the future and say, well, based on what we've experienced in the past, this is the most likely scenario coming into this. So what I think will happen is, like I said, I think. Electronic communication is going to be a big thing moving forward. And again, you look at it from a health point of view, but also from time saving and efficiency as well. So if there are some offices that don't use computers or only use computers to book appointment, well, you now need a little bit more of a sophisticated software. So it is gonna uproot the discipline of dentistry and move it forward into the 21st century. So that's one thing that is good. Virtual monitoring, again, in this day and age where, whether good or bad, most of us travel quite a bit. And if I have a patient, and I'm going to use my practice as an example, I have someone in aligners and I expect to see them every 8 or 10 weeks. And it just so happened that at 10 weeks, they're in Japan, they're in India, then in Australia. What do I do? How do I follow up with that? Well, having distance monitoring, having virtual monitoring will give me an idea. Maybe have a 5-10 minute session with those patients and decide on, hey, what to do next. If everything's going well, just keep moving forward. Hey, doc, I lost my aligner and the luggage. What do I do? And then you give them advice. So continuity of treatment becomes good. So that's another advantage that I think that we're going to see a lot more frequently in the future as well. One of the other things that we may end up seeing is, and I already touched up on that, is having a couple of rooms that are completely closed. So when we do handle handpiece, anything that creates aerosol, basically, and that will require a little bit of modification. But again, that will put patients and team members at ease, and that's good. One of the other things that we may notice is booking. That might be a little bit different, whereby having a full waiting area or reception area, that's going to be a no-no nowadays. So one of the things that I've always been firm on is, for instance, when we're doing orthodontic treatment with the Invisalign or braces, whatever the case may be, we ask the parents not to come into the room because I'd like to give them an update at the end of the appointment. So them coming to the treatment area is not hygienic, is not healthy, and from psychological point of view, I want to connect with that child. I want them to tell me whatever they want to tell me. If they are wearing the aligner, if they're not wearing the aligner, why and why not. And when there's a parent sitting by or a guardian sitting nearby, they're not going to be as forthcoming. So one of the things that I've started doing a way back is to ask the parent or the guardian to remain in the reception area or even go for a walk, go grab a coffee, whatever the case may be. Again, the reason for that is I want that patient, especially if that patient is a minor or a teenager, I want them to be comfortable discussing their treatment with me if they have any questions, whatever the case may be. So again, asking parents to come into the treatment area is going to be a no-no moving forward. and that may not be a bad thing, quite frankly. Having maybe patients, having parents or guardian dropping their kids off a little bit sooner. And the flip side to that is, because we're going to be so strict with time, we're going to expect our patients to be on time. And guess what? Patients are going to understand that concept a little bit better today than they did
Yeah.
last year, heck, last month, as a matter of fact. So your time slot is from 9 to 9:30. If you show up at 9:15, I'm going to have to reschedule you, ma'am or sir. So
Mhm.
something good will come out of that as well. So having busy waiting area or reception area is going to be a no-no moving forward. Having parents come into the treatment area, or spouses even come into the treatment area, they would come to the consult room. Maybe they can come as a group, but when it comes to the treatment area, if they have any questions, they should leave that till the end and ask. At the end of the day, what I think this will do personally, it's going to have the doctor focus on treatment and focus on that patient a little bit more. I'm not saying that doctors don't pay more attention, but you can start it from A to Z rather than calling the parent or calling the spouse and give him an update. You'll actually follow it through. You pay attention to everything, and then you give an update to the parent or the spouse or the guardian, whatever the case may be. So a little bit more attention to detail I think, will actually resurface as well. So all in all, these are some of the changes that I'd expect. Some physical modification may occur if some of the chairs are way too close, which I can't see, because when we design dental and orthodontic offices, we need to have at least 6 feet in between chairs anyway, so we can maneuver around them. So I don't suspect there will be a lot of modification when it comes to that. But having a couple of rooms that are completely closed with doors is something that we'll need. But again, most of us already have that. So it's adapting to everything. But those changes, in my opinion, are not going to be all negative. Actually, most of them will be positive.
Yeah, no, thanks for shedding some positivity on that, because, in the last 6 weeks, I have been looking at other industries and been seeing the changes that they've been making. Like when
Yeah,
you think about restaurants, they
yeah,
were dependent on people actually being there to
yeah.
be able to eat and enjoy their food, and, to be able to get revenue so that they can pay their bills and pay their team. But now they have adjusted. Like the other day, Tyler and I, we love going to trying different foods, and there's lots of great food trucks. And so there was supposed to be this food truck festival, but with COVID-19, what they ended up doing was changing it to a drive-through food truck. So we all waited in line in our cars, took everything, they came up, they put everything on the table. It was just all cash, like a tap and everything. And there you go. We got our food. Nothing changed. So it was just all these things that we need to see how we can still operate, but just a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, we're all virtual. We're all, there's people watching us right now. You and I are able to connect when we're in different provinces. There's ways for us to be able to see how can we introduce some of those pieces into our business.
Yeah, you know what? One of the other positive things, and outside of dentistry altogether, is that early on I joked about my wife's comment about social distancing. Makes her want to hug more people more often. As a matter of fact, because we're social animals, right? So going out to dine is an experience. So the food is a big part of it, but it's not the only part, right? So now what will happen is you can either book your table. The tables might be a little bit farther apart, but just keep in mind this is not going to be forever, because once a vaccine is found for this darn virus, and then it becomes just like any other disease, and then normal life will go back to what it was before. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think restaurants will become a little bit closer. But once while we go through this, tables may be further apart and fewer people will be inside the restaurant. And you know what? Again, maybe I'm not as cynical as I should be, but that would probably provide it for a better dining experience. Maybe the waiter is not going to forget your drink this time, your red wine, and mix it up with a white wine or whatever the case may be. So I think something good will come out of that. And if you want to experience the food, you can order, pick it up, and go elsewhere. Heck, going back to your house. So being locked out with my family and on lockdown with my family, I was worried about it. My kids are 20 and 22, and the younger one is 12. So you're thinking, what do we do now? How do we manage? Well, we manage quite nice. I got to know a lot about my kids, believe it or not. We haven't had any major hiccups, so we manage. And what I'm trying to say is, every now and then ordering a meal and bringing it home and having the whole family sit together, or if you're a couple with no kids, having sit down and not have to rush the meal because they have to turn over the table for the next. So look at the silver lining. There's always
Mhm.
a silver lining, and something good will come out of that. I think our society will adapt nicely, and we can always enjoy the things that we always enjoyed, and we just put a little twist on it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you mentioned spending more time with your family. What kind of things have you guys been up to over the last few weeks together?
Well, my wife's go-to is let's watch a movie, which is fine, but all her movies are her taste in movie and mine are not the same. It's so I like. She likes, and she calls it bubble gum for the brain. She goes, I want to laugh. We're all stressed. I don't want anything deep and heavy, and I don't want shooting and killing, and I don't want a mystery. I just want to laugh. So I want funny, lighthearted. And what I like to do is I like to watch mystery, for instance, and who done it kind of thing. So we compromise a little bit. One day we watch one of her movies, one day we watch one of mine. We play games, board games a lot, Game of Life, Monopoly, so on and so forth. Reading, which is nice to see my kids pick up on reading. I'm reading a book right now by David Voss. It says never split the difference. It's,
Ah,
it's
good
about
book.
it's a very good book. It's about negotiation. It's about everything in life. It's funny because I relate as I'm reading it. I relate to orthodontics. I'm thinking this is how we interact with our patients, as a matter of fact. So you can apply to different aspect of life. So these are some of the things that we've been doing. Taking walks. I can't remember the last time I took a walk. Just
No.
went on a hike. So now either with my wife and kids, excuse me, or with my wife alone, we go on a nice day. We take a 45-minute walk, which is nice. I mean, we've never explored
Mhm.
our own neighborhood. We live in British Columbia and Vancouver, which is a beautiful
Mhm.
neck of the wood, but I've never experienced. So we're doing more walks, which is healthy, which is nice. You take in fresh air and what have you. So these are some of the things that I'm sure, like most of our listeners, do the same. So, but it was nice. You sort of rediscover yourself, you rediscover your family, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I know Nadia and I have very similar tastes in movies. I'm the same way when it comes to picking something with
Yeah.
Tyler on the weekend.
Yeah.
It's always no, that's I'm gonna cry at the movie. I don't want to cry. I want to laugh.
Yeah. So
So
what have you been doing, Samantha? Have you been also during the lockdown, you and Tyler, what have you guys been doing other
same.
than work? Because I know you've been working hard on Stream Dental.
I've been working a lot, but trying
Yeah.
to take some time every single day. We have been taking 45 minutes and we're going for a walk. And like you said, we're exploring different kind of pathways along our area. And yesterday we decided to go to another part of town and find, some new walk pathways and dog walks and things like that for us. So that was fun. Yeah, I've been cooking a lot more at home, which
Okay.
is new for me.
Yeah.
So I've been trying new meals that I actually, it's new tastes, new flavors. So
Yeah.
that's been lots of fun. And yeah, just playing some board games and reading a book. So it's been nice to kind of have a little bit of a slower pace because before I felt like I was going, from here to the grocery store, then there, and it was just go, go, go all the time. And
Yeah.
really having that time to connect with Tyler like I wanted. So now I feel like we've gotten closer more than we have before.
Yeah, well, you know what, Samantha? I'm going to turn the table around and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now. So, to our listeners, Samantha has been looking after the. So Samantha and I are equal partners in this adventure called Stream Dental, which is an HR, but HR is a misnomer. Sort of, it's a little bit more than human resources. It's human interaction really at every level. A little bit of legal, a little bit of guidelines, a little bit of business. So it's all mixed together. A bit of common sense. At the end of the day, we help our clients, which are usually the dentists or the office managers, uh, get rid of the chaos and come up with solutions for problems, whether existing problems or getting ready or foreseeing future potential problems. And that's what Stream Dental does. So, and we've helped a lot of and I want to say families because most of the startups up until COVID-19, we've helped so many startups that some of the letters that we got are really heartwarming and touching. And they say, we're chaotic, dealing with lawyers, accountants, banks, borrowing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to purchase a practice or start a practice. So having you guys on our side helping us with this has been it made our life a lot easier, our professional life a lot easier. So it is nice to hear all of these. And a big thank you goes to my partner Samantha because she's hands-on. So now Samantha, let's compare this the last 6 to 8 weeks to what you've had before. What have you seen? What have you noticed interacting with these clients, with the doctors directly? Tell us and tell the audience, what is it that you've noticed and what is it that you've observed?
Yeah, I think like you were saying, that we've helped so many practices, and it's always been on a positive note, right? Where we're helping them when it comes to preparing to open their doors for business, hiring their team, putting together, some great policies and processes so that you can create a great culture. And then all of a sudden that switched, right? Now we had to help practices close their door, walk through laying off their team. So it was definitely, it hasn't been an easy 6 weeks. How difficult this has been. Especially I love being positive and optimistic, and it was definitely, draining. It weighed you down emotionally. So I think that was probably the toughest thing. But I feel that there's a little bit more of a glimmer of hope now that things are starting to prepare to potentially reopen in the coming weeks. So now it's switching. I feel like everybody, including myself, had to go through that the process of grief where you're mad, you're sad, so I feel like we're kind of at that point where there's some optimism now. And so these practices are communicating with their team. They're doing business strategies. We're working with them on that front as well, on how to be able to rebuild, restore, and prepare to reopen. So now this is kind of like that exciting part again, that's just kind of getting back into that groove and then getting that momentum to get back to it.
Good. And what have you noticed in terms of the human spirit, in terms of your doctors? I know they're all stressed, and truth be told, that's when a person's real personality comes to the surface, right? When they're stressed, when they're angry, when they're worried. So what have you noticed? Like I said, my interaction with my colleagues, being an international speaker, I made friends all over the world, and this was a chance for me to reconnect with many of them, and most of them are outside of North America. As a matter of fact, it's nice to hear their voices. It's nice to communicate with them, even if it's via text. So it's nice to see that everybody's asking how we're doing. What is it? And everybody's asking everybody else's opinion about what the future holds and so on. So it was nice to see that camaraderie that is not necessarily related to tooth movement or to aligner treatment or so on. So what have you noticed interacting with the clients?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I feel that the community has just all of a sudden gotten so much closer together. And like you said, it's not about, clinical talk. Now this is about the human side. People are really taking that time to not step back. They're stepping up to be able to see how can they contribute to, their other professionals. So I've seen so many webinars, so many great speakers, so many conferences, so many interviews, and so many things that are happening on social media. And now it's easily available, right? So I feel that a lot of people are just kind of absorbing all of that information, trying to align themselves with positive people. So in that way, we can all build each other up.
Perfect. Well, it is nice to hear. It's just nice to see, and our business is not, people that say this is a business decision. It's not personal. Everything is personal. Business is personal. As far as I'm concerned, that's a philosophy I adopted a long time ago. And at the end of the day, again, those of you that think it's gloom and doom, it is going to be tough, but it's not. We're certainly going to survive this, and at the end of the tunnel, we're actually going to be better off. One thing. So I'm one of the biggest Invisalign users in the world and have been for the last 2 decades almost. And I think one of the things that both general dentists and orthodontists are going to do, for instance, are going to focus a little bit more on aligner treatment, being pre-restorative treatment or be it just orthodontic treatment. Trying to adapt the system such that, again, it's safer. We don't have to create a lot of aerosol and airborne particles with this. That's going to be good. I know Align Technology is working on quite a few things that will actually help us adapt, and I'll leave it at that. I can't divulge any more than that, but it is nice to be working with a socially conscionable company that is actually focusing on that. So it's good to see that. Wires and brackets will probably will be a little bit maybe on the decline, just because bracket bonding and removing brackets and so on and so forth. So again, just giving this as an example, I think the specialty and the discipline will all move forward and will improve. This is where creation and technology will come to the forefront. Again, this is just going to speed things up a little bit, but it'll be nice to see. But those of you that just like me are dying to get back to work, it's going to be good. It may be slow, but it will be good. It'll be nice to get to fall into a routine. As much as we dislike routine, we came to realize we actually like it a little bit more than we dislike it.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. I think this is the greatest opportunity for any business owner, especially here within our industry, within healthcare. And so the quote that I love right now, and I've been kind of reiterating in my mind over and over and over, is that a lump of coal was turns into a diamond because they withstood the pressure and the heat. And this is that pressure and that heat. And so all of us can come out of this priceless. And if we adapt, if we overcome, and if we, really work to be able to build that thriving business. So now is that time. If, for example, as Dr. Dar was mentioning, Invisalign is going to be a great option for practice owners to be able to provide a new source of income, and being able to, limit the amount of visits, limiting the amount of aerosol and things like that are needed. Patients are always looking for Invisalign. This is an option where most of them 90% of them are going to want Invisalign as opposed to braces. And you and I experienced that in one of the offices in Calgary. We had 99% of them who were in braces, in Invisalign. And only the 1% were the ones who felt like they missed out on their childhood without having braces. So they wanted to go ahead and do braces, right? So
that's
this is
so
a
true.
great opportunity. So why not, take those webinars and, take those conferences to be able to see how can I incorporate this into my business and start putting together all those strategies and train your team so you guys are ready to hit the ground running.
Good, and I agree with you, Samantha. Anyways, it's this is I can hardly wait to just get out of my house right now, other than just go to the pharmacy and go do groceries. But to get back to work, to get back to routine, see my colleagues, see my friends as well. So it's not just school kids that miss their friends. I miss my friends. Adults miss their friends too as well. And again, Stream Dental is here to help you. We build it from the bottom up. It is a reflection of what you see. Samantha and I are really Stream Dental, and we have an amazing team that subscribe to the same philosophy. So we're here to help. And again, allow me to toot my horn one more time and give us a little plug. What we do is we'll help you create organization out of the chaos that we're all in right now. It's something that we're trained to do. It's something that we've been doing for years. So we can bring a little bit of closure, and we'll give you some guidelines as to how to run your office efficiently and relieve a lot of the stress that you've been. Samantha, thank you for taking the time. I hope our listeners got something out of it today. It's I didn't want it to be a Mr. Rogers episode either with sunshine and all. Hard work is ahead of us, but you know what? It's not going to break our back either.
Yep. Agreed. And we've got quite a few people who are live watching us right now. So thanks so much for that. I see that Nicole is watching us, and she says that she misses us, and she wants to know what we've been cooking.
Oh,
well, what did I make the other day that was actually I surprised myself. I thought I did a good job. I made a lentil stew. That was really good.
Nice.
And have you been starting to try and do some cooking, or
Yes, I've been. So I had. So I'm going to tell you, I have a life-changing experience. I had dinner with Simon Beard. Simon Beard is the senior vice president at Align Technology, and I met him early February, and we had dinner. And I noticed what he ordered. He did not order any meat whatsoever. So he's vegetarian. He's actually vegan. And I asked him, and he says, "Listen, I used to have health issues, and ever since I switched, I've become completely healthy." So he actually convinced me. So I'm not vegan, but I'm almost vegetarian. When I say almost, I've only had chicken maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 3 months. No red meat. So yeah, so I've been. I want to say vegetarian, and I do feel great as well. My cholesterol was a little bit higher than it should have been, and I want to go in and get tested afterwards. So we've been doing pasta, but sort of vegetarian. So I've tried my hand on that under my wife's supervision. If my wife is watching, I want her to know she gets the credit. So I've been doing a little bit of that, and salads, all kinds of salads as well. Throw in there, and almonds and what have you, and healthy stuff in there. Just get some source of protein in there. So that's what we've been doing, and it has been a little bit more pleasant rather than I have to eat to survive so I can run to the next meeting. We're actually enjoying it a little bit more. But yeah, my wife does the heavy lifting, 80% of the cooking.
Good. Well, one of these days I'm going to have to try your cooking.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy to. I'll be flattered.
Oh, good. Well, thanks so
Good.
much again, Dr.
Thank
Dar.
you.
This was a lot of fun. And how can people reach you if they want to have any questions about Invisalign or what we do here at Stream?
Well, I'm going to give my personal email address. It's dr.samdaher@yahoo.ca. Again, .ca. So dr.samdaher@yahoo.ca. I'm happy to, we're all at home. It's always good to get to receive emails. And again, this is my personal email, so feel free to communicate, and I'm happy to reply.
Great. Thanks so much, Dr. Dar. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.